After all, she was too depressed during this period, and really wanted to take the opportunity to relax. However, everyone asked her to treat them to dinner, and couldn't afford to pay for it. Thinking of this, she can only find excuses and say, "Oh, sisters, I'm so sorry. I just moved, there are still a lot of places to clean up in the house, so I may not get time." "Oh." Someone said, "Sister Elaine, you have moved in, so you will slowly clean up. Today is the day of housewarming. If you miss it, there will be no such good sign." Elaine was also very excited. But, money is a big problem. Jacob has already returned all the remaining money to Charlie, so she can only go to Charlie and ask for the tens of thousands back. So she said to her friend, "Wait for me, I will confirm the time with my family, and I will reply to you later." The eldest sister said, "It's 1:30 in the afternoon. Give us a quasi-trust before 3 o'clock, so we can arrange time." "Okay." Elaine hurriedly agreed, and then quickly got up and wanted to find Charlie. At this time, Charlie was cooking in the kitchen downstairs. Since they just moved to a new house, it took a long time to clean up, so today he had dinner later than usual. But Charlie's treatment was good. Two beauties, Claire and Elsa, surrounded him and helped him in the kitchen, so cooking became a kind of enjoyment. After preparing the meal and serving it out, Elaine also walked down from the elevator at this time. She was going to ask Charlie for money, but when she saw people preparing to eat in the kitchen, she suddenly hesitated. She wasn't embarrassed to talk to Charlie, the key, husband and daughter were here, so she felt it inappropriate to speak immediately. At this moment, she heard the doorbell ringing outside, so she said in surprise, "Why, someone came to visit just after moving in." After speaking, she turned and walked out of the gate and went through the yard to open it. As soon as the door opened, she suddenly discovered that Mrs. Wilson was standing at the door with Noah, Harold and Wendy. Elaine didn't know that Wilson's family had been sealed up. When she saw the old Mrs. Wilson and a group of people, standing at the door like people fleeing with large bags, she frowned and asked, "Why are you here again?" Seeing Elaine open the door, Mrs. Wilson ignored her, and walked in blankly. Elaine hurriedly stood in front of her and said, "What are you doing? Break into the house? Believe it or not, I called the police to catch you." The old Mrs. Wilson squeezed Elaine away, and while walking inside, she said dissatisfied, "I can't come to see my son? Now I can't even enter your house?" Elaine was anxious, and grabbed her, and said, "Why don't you understand the good words? You are not welcome here, have you heard? Don't run to our house if you have anything to do in the future, go quickly." Old Mrs. Wilson broke free from her and walked in. As soon as she entered the living room, she smelled the scent of the food and she shrugged her nose. "It smells so good. It's more fragrant than the duck stand boiled cabbage for lunch." Before the meal was finished at the crucial noon, the people from the court came to the door, and after crying and crying for a long time, the Lady Wilson was hungry and pressed her back. At this moment, when she smelled the scent, her stomach gurgled. When Elaine heard this voice, she sneered immediately, and said, "It turns out that you are coming to our house to beg for food. I think you were so arrogant at the beginning. Every meal was cold and hot. Why are you hungry now? Be like this ghost?" When the old Mrs. Wilson heard Elaine's words, her face flushed suddenly, and she wanted to go back directly, but when she thought that she was still planning to live in Thompson and want to live a good life, she could only bear her for a while. "My daughter-in-law, Mom is really hungry. You can let Mom eat first, right?" Elaine sneered and said, "Stop dreaming, I'll give you 10 seconds to get out by yourself, or let the police come and take you away." Seeing that the old Mrs. Wilson couldn't make sense with her, she shouted in a loud voice, "Jacob, do you have the heart to watch your mother starve to death?" Jacob walked out with a sad look and said, "Mom, 1.21 million was just given to you yesterday, what else can I do?" Mrs. Wilson immediately sat on the ground and cried loudly, "My son, don't you know that the bank has sealed our villa, and your brother and I have nowhere to stay now?" After that, she looked at Jacob, crying and pleading, "Good son, you can't see your mother starve to death or freeze to death, right?" Jacob was a little surprised at once, and blurted out, What's the matter? How could the villa be sealed? It's not because of the debts owed by the Wilson Group. The old Mrs. Wilson wiped her eyes and said, "Good son, you can't save yourself. Your villa is so big, you prepare 2 rooms for your mother. I sleep in the same room with Wendy, and let your brother sleep in the same room with Harold." Elaine suddenly became anxious, and blurted out, "Lady Wilson, why are you so shameless? We have already said that our house does not welcome you, and licked our face to stay. Are you not ashamed?" The old Mrs. Wilson ignored her, looked at Jacob, and pleaded, "Jacob, you are the head of the family, can you speak for your mother?" After finishing speaking, she cried, "Please, I'm kneeling down for you.